Good morning, everyone, and welcome, first lecture of the new year. Today is also a special day. It's the birth anniversary of Swami Swahananda. He was one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, of course, and played one of the most significant roles in the Ramakrishna order. He was really the rock, the foundation. Sri Ramakrishna one day actually went and sat on his lap, and everyone was surprised. Why was he doing such a funny thing? And he said, I wanted to see how much weight he could bear, because somehow he knew that he would be the one to hold up the weight of the Ramakrishna mission, all of the work there. He was the one steady rock. If any of the direct disciples was the embodiment of the ideal of the Gita and Sthita Prajna, stage of steady wisdom, it was Swami Swahananda. He was cool and calm under all circumstances. He lived in a house full of women. He had to look after Holy Mother for so many years. Golap was there, Holy Mother's nieces were there. At the same time, running the work of the order, writing his great work, Lila Prasanga, because the great master, and always with such perfect calmness. So he's a great ideal for all of us today. The topic I chose was not related to that, but because of the New Year, that this is the time when we try to make a new resolve. These New Year's resolutions, sometimes they're a joke. Yeah, I'll exercise more, I'll lose weight, but it's a time to do some serious thinking, to really rededicate ourselves to this spiritual life and spiritual practice. So I thought I would talk on this topic, spiritual rebirth. We use this term, rebirth, in different ways. It may be a real second life. It may be a real radical type of awakening. So much so that we feel that before that we were sleepwalking through life, that we didn't know where we were going or what we were doing, but somehow something completely changes. This will be the most extreme type of form, and we find this in different religions. The evangelical movement, of course, is well known for this idea of being born again Christians. But we also have this idea, Dvijas, they're also born again. But it doesn't have to be a very radical thing. It can also be something that we choose. It can be a passage, a rite of passage, a ritual, something like that. Most religions have something. Yeah. In Judaism, there'll be the bar mitzvah. There'll be other types of rites and rituals that will represent a certain passage from maybe kind of novitiate type of period to some more adult role that we have to play. But these are all different types of, we can say rebirth or reviewing our dedication and rededicating ourselves. So this is something that's, even with all of the things that we know and that we do, that we have to remind ourselves. And sometimes we need a fresh start. And this New Year's is a good time for that. So this is basically why I chose this particular topic. The catalyst to some type of radical change is different for all people. And it may be something that we initially look upon as something in a very negative light. It may be a long illness that we have. It may be some very traumatic type of experience. It may be the death of a dear one, the death of a beloved friend. It may be financial collapse. It can be some emotional type of trauma, but this is a very common thing. We see this in the lives of many great saints even. If we look at many of the great people that we talk about in Vedanta, in our tradition, that how many of them experienced the death of a father when they were young. Even Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji, not quite so young, but Shankaracharya, many of them. And it got them to thinking that what is the purpose of life, how transitory everything is. So there are different catalysts that can bring about this feeling that a change is necessary, that we need to really either start a new beginning or rededicate ourselves if we've already made that change. So we'll find that sometimes it's a real new beginning, sometimes it's a false awakening. We think we've really achieved something, but we find out that now what we've achieved is that we're ready to start the path, not that we've reached the end of it. It may be something very spontaneous. It may be we feel like it's really grace. We had a beautiful song, Amazing Grace. Or it may be something that's consciously chosen, that now I'm ready, that I've been wasting my time, now I'm ready to do something very serious in spiritual life. But one thing we notice, that if it's genuine, if there's a genuine either experience or a genuine turning point in our lives, that it'll be something that we won't go about telling everybody. It'll be something deep and something very personal. Yeah, that when we hear people yelling from the rooftops, yes, I found it, then there's a little cause for thinking that is this the way one reacts if they've really had some very deep type of experience? These things are usually so precious that we don't like to talk about them too much. So this is one of the things we find in the Vedantic tradition. Any genuine spiritual experience, not only should it be kept to oneself, but there shouldn't be that desire, because that means there's some egos, that desire to tell other people about it. If it's something genuine and real, then we want to keep it within the confines of the heart. Maybe discuss it with the guru, but otherwise, mostly keep it that way. So, these are the different types of ways that we can look upon this type of spiritual rebirth. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, he talks about different ways that we really can have some actual experience, that we really can have some type of God realization. And it's different for different people. Different people will experience it in different ways. For most people, it'll start with some minor type of awakening and then a lot of hard work. That now I realize that there's something valuable to be achieved in life, but then we have to go about and do it. There'll be some, he says, hartat siddha, that just it happens in a flash, some awakening comes. He gives the example that they're digging a well for water, and they just happen to hit an underground spring, and the water shoots up automatically without having to do any other hard work like that. So there are all different ways that we can experience this. Sri Ramakrishna gives another nice example that explains both ways. He says if a room is dark for 1,000 years and you turn on the light, does it get light little by little or all at once? So it happens in a flash, but we may have to search for a long time to find the room, get into this dark room, search for a long time to find the light switch, and then when we finally get it and flip it up, then all at once. So both things are true, but everyone is different. And even different religious traditions explain things differently. There's something in the Zen tradition, Satori, that they really explain as the suddenness of it is something that's a distinctive feature of it. In the Vedantic or yogic tradition, it may be just gradually getting deeper and deeper in meditation, getting the mind to reach that point of stillness where it enters into a different realm. So it can happen in all different ways. I remember hearing a wonderful statement that was made by Swami Nikhilanandaji. I didn't meet him, but many of his disciples would talk about him very much. He used to say that the light that you see is the beginning of the tunnel. Now we know this expression, to see the light at the end of the tunnel. That the light at the end of the tunnel, if we're in a cave or something and we don't know how far it is, we know that there's an opening on the other side and we see light there and we think, all I have to do is reach the light and I'm at the end. He said, no, when we finally get there, we see that light is coming from the side. It's coming in, and now we know that that's the end of it. So we know that we have a long way to go. So both are valuable. We see that light, but it may be that we've reached now not the end of the journey, but the beginning of the journey. So this is sadhana siddha. The sadhana siddha is the one who has that realization. Some initial awakening will take place, but then through maybe many long years of spiritual practice. So what do we mean by this awakening or spiritual rebirth? I think it's partly based on some realization that the way we understand this world and live in this world and the way we understand ourselves is somehow flawed. And there's a deep realization that we don't know exactly what the purpose of life is, what we're meant to do here, what we want to achieve, what will bring happiness and fulfillment and peace and contentment in life. So something seems to bother us. Now, for many people, this never happens. There are many people who are content. They look at this world just as they take it as face value. And they may be very good people. This is not to judge them. They may be very good people. They may be very kind, unselfish people, lead good lives, dharmic type of lives, family lives and everything. This is not to judge them. But there'll be other people that will somehow have some nagging feeling that there has to be more than this. There has to be more to life. And this will be kind of the beginning of that. This idea that is there not an ultimate goal in life? Is there some reason why we've been put here on this earth? That is there something that we should accomplish above and beyond all the normal goals of life? The normal goals of life are good. You have a family, you have a job, you're successful in your career, you're charitable. All of these things are very good. But as Sri Ramakrishna says, at some point that we have to go beyond these and realize that there's something deeper and higher in life. So this is one of those strange things. We can even call this grace. This is what grace doesn't always mean there's illumination. And grace can mean that we wake up one day and we feel some emptiness. We feel something is missing in life. And something becomes a catalyst for us to try to experience and realize something higher in life. So there are many people that for some unknown reason will find this very good dharmic type of life unsatisfying. And for some it's not simply unsatisfying, for some people it becomes unbearable. They generally renounce the world, those people. These are the ones who become monks, to lead this just life of having one desire and fulfilling it and having another and fulfilling it. That there has to be something deeper than that. So this longing for something higher, longing to get something more out of life, this nagging doubt that at the end of life that we may feel that, what did I accomplish? That what did I... for many people, it'll be, well, I accomplished many things, and I have a legacy that I left behind, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But there'll be some that it just simply won't satisfy them. And this kind of negative aspect of all of this, I take to be a kind of grace. That the longing and desire to achieve something higher in life, even if no one else cares about it or understands it or makes fun of us even. Which may happen. It'll be something that drags us and pulls us. So maybe we may look at it as a type of vairagya, because this will also mean that this world no longer appeals to us in the way that it used to or does for most people. So all of these things are these aspects of this grace, I would say, that helps pull us out of just kind of lethargy or just a routine type of life. Now, for some people, this feeling that I'm not getting everything out of life goes in the opposite direction. This tremendous lust for power and for enjoyment and pleasure and long life and everything. And then ultimately they'll have to find that that's not what they were looking for. But this also it can go in either direction. Those are very fortunate who realize that no, the answer has to be by turning within somehow. When we look at the lives of saints, the great saints, we find that there was always some type of turning point. And it could have been something that the rest of the world thinks of as a very negative type of thing, but they'll take it in a completely different way. We have so many examples of this dark night of the soul that people really have to go through almost some type of depression, some type of feeling of hopelessness before the sun comes up, before they have some deeper type of awakening, a period of restlessness and despair, which turns out to be something essential for this awakening to take place. And sometimes the depth of despair will be equivalent to the joy of this rebirth that they have. So when we go through difficult periods, we have to try to look upon them as grace also, and realize that we'll come out of it, and that we'll recognize the benefit of all of these things. This is captured very beautifully in one of my favorite poems of Swami Vivekananda. This is called Angels Unawares. One bending low with load of life that meant no joy, but suffering harsh and hard, and wending on his way through dark and dismal paths, without a flash of light from brain or heart to give a moment's cheer, till the line that marks out pain from pleasure, death from life, and good from what is evil, was well nigh wiped from sight, saw one blessed night a faint but beautiful ray of light descend to him. He knew not what or where from, but called it God and worshipped. Hope, an utter stranger, came to him and spread through all his parts, and life to him meant more than he could ever dream, and covered all he knew. Nay, peeped beyond this world. The sages winked and smiled and called it superstition. But he did feel its power and peace, and gently answered back, O blessed superstition. One drunk with wine of wealth and power and health to enjoy them both, whirled on his maddening course, till the earth he thought was made for him, his pleasure garden, and man, the crawling worm, was made to find him sport, till the thousand lights of joy, with pleasure fed, that flickered day and night before his eyes, with constant change of colors, began to blur his sight and cloy his senses, till selfishness, like a horny growth, had spread all o'er his heart, and pleasure meant to him no more than pain, bereft of feeling, and life in the sense, so joyful, precious once, a rotting corpse between his arms, which he forsooth would shun, but more he tried, the more it clung to him, and wished him frenzied brain, 1,000 forms of death, but quailed before the charm. Then sorrow came, and wealth and power went, and made him kinship find with all the human race, in groans and tears, and, though its friends would laugh, his lips would speak in grateful accents, O blessed misery. One born with healthy frame, but not of will, that can resist emotion strong, deep and strong, nor impulse throw, surcharged with potent strength, and just the sort that passes good and kind, beheld that he was safe, whilst others, long and vain, did struggle against the surging waves, till, morbid grown, his mind could see, like flies that seek the putrid part, but what was bad. Then fortune smiled on him, and his foot slipped. This oped his eyes for air, and made him find that stones and trees ne'er break the law, but stones and trees remain. That man alone is blessed with power to fight and conquer fate, transcending bounds and laws. From him his passive nature fell, and life appeared as broad and new, and broader, newer grew, till light ahead began to break, and glimpse of that where peace eternal dwells. Yet one can only reach by wading through the sea of struggles. Courage-giving came. Then looking back on all that made him kin to stocks and stones, and to what the world had shunned him for, his fall, he blessed the fall, and with a joyful heart declared, "Blessed sin." We have several wonderful examples of how Sri Ramakrishna's disciples had an awakening at his touch. Now, this is something that would be nice if we could get that. This is a rare thing. This is not something that we can wait for. But we see that it came after many of them had experienced some type of misery or suffering, or had gone through this period of pleasure seeking, that they were prepared for all of that. We have the example, of course, Girish Ghosh. How, when he looked back on his life, all the things that he said were a mountain full of sin, that these prepared him somehow, that he had been finished with all of those things. And then we look at someone like Mahendranath Gupta, how so many difficulties at home and everything, and how he reached the point of almost ready to take his life, how all of these things prepared for that meeting with Sri Ramakrishna. The case of M is really very interesting. We find that M is both present and hidden in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. He does his very best to be a silent observer. Of course, he'll have to record when he has dialogue and everything. But all of the times when something very personal is being addressed with Sri Ramakrishna and with M, he'll use a different type of pseudonym. He'll say a Bhakta or Mani Mohan. He'll have different names, usually beginning with an M, so we can guess that it was him. But his life was not a very easy type of life. That the things that we know from the Gospel is that he was unhappy at home. There's that long ongoing drama about whether he should move back to his father's house or stay on his own. And at some point we know that a child died and that his wife became half mad. And of course he was terribly grieved and mourning because of all of this. And of course we know he's a member of the Brahmo Samaj and very devoted to Keshab. And that he was a very serious and brilliant person, also as just from an intellectual point of view. But what we don't know are some of the other little details of his life that, of course, we read other books, we find out that when N was a young boy, his mother died. And then his father married again, and he was very unhappy at home. He had brothers that were not on the same spiritual wavelength as him, except for the younger brother, but the older brothers, they made fun of him. In those days, it was standard for the young married couple to live at home. So his wife would live in her in-laws' house, and M was so gentle, not one to fight back, so he just silently suffered at home and had that great desire to leave home, have his own place with his wife and children and everything. So this is something that we see in the Gospel. Sri Ramakrishna was very anxious for him to move back home, to make up with his father and to live peacefully with everyone. Then he wouldn't have to worry so much about earning his money and having a separate household and cooking the food and doing everything that way. The joint families had certain advantages in those days. But the point I'm making is that before M met Sri Ramakrishna, that he had reached that point where he was contemplating suicide, that he really felt that life was unbearable with that present situation, that the family life was so difficult, and the brother and father, even father, that they had no sympathy for him or understanding or anything. So that he made arrangements to leave that night to take a carriage and go to the sister's house in Baranagar. And different events took place. The carriage broke down. He had to stay with another relative. Anyhow, by the time he gets to his wife's family, this nephew, Sidhu, who sees that his uncle is very unhappy, he says, "Let me take you to a few places to kind of cheer you up." And they visit some nice garden places and other things. And then he says there's a beautiful temple and garden in the Rani Rashmani's new place in Dakshineshwar. Would you like to go see it? So this is how M's life got completely turned around. That when he got there and when he saw Sri Ramakrishna, that immediately he felt as if he were in the presence of Shukadeva reciting the Bhagavata to King Parikshit, or that he had found himself in that courtyard with Chaitanya Deva and all of the disciples where they did kirtan and everything. And so really this awakening for M was a type of saving of his life. He said, "After meeting Sri Ramakrishna, I completely forgot my past. His towering personality and spiritual magnetism erased my sad memories." So, not only did he give him a spiritual life, but he really saved his life. We don't know if he would have actually gone through with his suicide, but he had reached that point. So sometimes we have to reach rock bottom in order for this grace to come also. In the case of M, there's nothing very radical. Some of the other direct disciples, the beginning, Thakur will touch them and they'll have some samadhi. It was nothing like that with M, but it was such a radical turnaround for him that his whole life became blessed and became changed. And now we look upon him as one of the really great inner circle, Andaranga, devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. And he brought so many young boys and young men to Sri Ramakrishna, and Thakur trusted him so much that he would send these young boys to M, that because he knew M would only speak of Sri Ramakrishna, and they would get that kind of same type of spiritual instruction from him. And later, M became almost like a rishi and had his own ashram, and many came to him, and many were inspired so much by him. Now we go back to Girish Ghosh. We have the almost opposite scenario. Girish was such a great playwright that he's considered to be the father of the modern Bengal stage. And he really brought a whole life to the stage, at least during his lifetime there. And also he was an actor. At the same time, he was an unabashed pleasure seeker, hedonist. That whatever it was, drinking, carousing, whatever it was, that he took everything to an extreme. He was a radical free thinker. You couldn't get him to do anything unless he wanted to do it. He was completely headstrong, fearless, independent. At the same time, he was also a good person. He had a very good side to him, and a kind of spiritual side to him that was really hidden behind all of this. Like M, he lost his mother when he was young. See, some of them is the loss of a father, some loss of a mother. Yeah, it happened with others also. Or the father married a second time, something like Rakal and others. And he was raised with very little discipline. When he was older, he started drinking and running around with a very bad crowd, and he terrorized the neighborhood. They had great fun in going around and desecrating even these images, gods and goddesses and things like that. So this is the nature of Girish when he met Sri Ramakrishna. But as I say, he did have this other side. He used to raise money to help the poor. He would raise money and buy food and medicines and things like that. So he had that nice, generous side. He even studied homeopathy in order to serve others. So he was a complex character, very complex. One side was kind of demonic, and the other side was kind of divine. He had both aspects to him. Even his career as a playwright was born out of stubbornness. One of his friends once said to him that there were portions of the great play Macbeth that his friend said could never be translated into Bengali, into another language like that. So Girish, he went on and translated the whole play, all of Macbeth into Bengali, and then people saw that he had a talent, he understood. He also had a talent for that. So he had the loss of the mother when he was very young, loss of a father when he was a little bit older. When he was 30 years old, his young wife fell ill and soon died after that, leaving him to raise one son and one daughter. And then he lost his job. He had one thing after another. And sometimes later he became seriously ill, was on the point of death. So all of these things happened to this Girish. And this avowed atheist, as a final desperate attempt, decided to call on God and decided to pray to God to see if somehow his life could be turned around a little bit. And he started to get a little bit of faith. Now, even before he met Sri Ramakrishna, he wrote these plays about Chaitanya Deva and Prahlad and Dhruva and everything. So he popularized a lot of these things in Kolkata and Bengal also. But Girish had heard now about Sri Ramakrishna from Keshav. Most of the people, educated people in those days, heard about Sri Ramakrishna through Keshav and the Brahmo Samaj. So he went to see him. Now, M immediately saw Sri Ramakrishna as like an ancient sage. Girish had the opposite reaction. Girish thought, who is this man? Is this some type of pretense? He sees Sri Ramakrishna say, is it daytime or is it nighttime? And he said, what is this? The light is on. He's asking a ridiculous question like that. And so he said, the lamps are burning before his very eyes. Doesn't he know what time it is? It's dark outside. So he had a very bad impression and didn't go back to see him again. But then Sri Ramakrishna himself went to see that play, this Chaitanya Lila, the life of Chaitanya Deva. And when they met, Sri Ramakrishna bowed before Girish. Girish bowed before him. Thakur would always bow before people. And it was kind of lower and lower and lower. They went back and forth till they didn't know who would be the last one. And so finally, Girish, he very respectfully showed him to his seat. And it's interesting that night, this Chaitanya Deva, this Chaitanya Lila, that the actress who played the role of Chaitanya Deva, this Binodini, that Thakur showered his grace on her. She eventually gave up the theater completely and devoted her life to spiritual practice. And sometimes this impression comes that Sri Ramakrishna was so particular about who he would shower his grace on that he only chose the greatest, most qualified disciples. And yet, all of these women, the women played the roles of men even, who were considered to be the lowest of the low, prostitutes and mistresses, how we showered his grace on them. Yeah. So, anyhow, so this is the play that he went to see, and he was delighted with it. He blessed all of these actresses for the way they, especially Binodini, playing this role of Chaitanya Deva. He actually touched her head and said, be illumined. This is Binodini. So it was very, very wonderful grace that she received. So gradually, then Girish is starting to melt. He's starting to feel that maybe this Ramakrishna, there's something special about him. And then it was the fourth meeting when he was really won over. and felt that divine attraction of Sri Ramakrishna. He says, I was sitting on the porch of a friend's house when I saw Sri Ramakrishna slowly approaching, accompanied by Narayan and a couple of other devotees. No sooner had I turned my eyes toward him than he saluted me. I returned his salute. Then he went on. For no accountable reason, my heart felt drawn towards him by an invisible string. As soon as he had gone a short distance, I felt an urge to follow him. I could not keep calm, for the attraction I felt was not of this earth. It was something for which no former experience had ever prepared me. It was something unique, which no words could describe. Just at that moment, a person whose name I do not recall brought me a message from him and said, Sri Ramakrishna is calling you. I went. Sri Ramakrishna was then in an ecstatic mood, and they spoke about the need for a guru, which was something completely out of the realm of Girish's way of thinking, and initiation and everything. And then Sri Ramakrishna said to him, don't worry, your guru has already been chosen for you. That's as much as he said then. Then there was another meeting. Sri Ramakrishna again went to see another of the plays of Girish. And still, Girish was a little bit hesitant to really bow down, to make full, they would, of course, do like this, but to really make pranam to him. So he hesitated to even meet Sri Ramakrishna, feeling he'll be embarrassed. Everyone else is bowing down to him. And then he said, nevertheless, I went. I found him alighting from the carriage. Seeing his serene and radiant face, my stony heart melted. I rebuked myself in shame, and that shame still haunts my memory. To think that I had refused to greet this sweet and gentle soul. Then I conducted him upstairs. There I saluted him, touching his feet. Even now I do not understand the reason, but at that moment a radical change came over me, and I was a different man. So this was we can say, the beginning of the rebirth for Girish. And ultimately, it was because he was so self-willed that the only instruction that he could take would be that, yes, then give me your power of attorney. And this is the thing that really converted Girish. He used to say to the others that your spiritual practice has a beginning and an end. You can do a few hours of meditation and do something else later, but mine is 24 hours a day, that I can't take a single step without asking myself, is it this wretched ego of mine who wants to do it, or is this in accordance with divine will or with Sri Ramakrishna's will? Every second I have to remember him that way. So this is how this wonderful transformation took place. And Girish became one of the staunchest ones to proclaim Sri Ramakrishna as an avatar. And he was the catalyst for our Kalpataru Day also, how Sri Ramakrishna went into that spiritual mood. I had other things I would mention, but I won't go through all of it. If any of you are interested, there's a wonderful story about Vilva Mangal. This Vilva Mangal, and there was another play. Girish wrote a play with regard to this. How he was so attached to a prostitute that one day he wanted to see her. There was a terrible torrential rainstorm, and the only way to cross the river was by swimming. So he started swimming. He grabbed hold of a log, and then when he got to the shore, he walked on these big stones, and then he saw a rope hanging on the wall, and he climbed over it, and just to get to his Chintamani, the one that he was longing to see. And she noticed a funny smell, and she said, "What is that?" They went back and saw that this log he grabbed was a rotting corpse, and that the stones he was walking on were the backs of these alligators. And the rope, what was the rope? There was a snake whose head was in a little crevice in the wall, and he was so longing to see his Chintamani that he was unconscious of any of these things. So she simply said to him, "If you can lose your mind in thought of me so deeply, if you could do that for God, you could become a great saint." And that did it. Then it just clicked. And then he left everything and he went off and devoted his life to spiritual practice, became a very saintly person. The life of Buddha, he had to have those 4 visions. He had to see, what does it mean to have a terrible illness in this lifetime? What does it mean to reach that stage of old age where one can hardly walk or stand? What does it mean to die? And then to finally see someone who had renounced everything, that joy of vairagya, that joy of detachment and everything, that these things awakened something within him, and at the same time he had to practice intense spiritual practice. That he had to really spend years in deep meditation and everything, and then finally he had his enlightenment, of course. So this process of spiritual rebirth, awakening, it is different for everyone. As I say, for some, it's almost a conscious experience that, or decision, that at one point we reach a stage where we say, yes, I want to do something different. For other people, circumstances seem to force this, and we may have that feeling of grace. And it may be what other people think of as a terrible tragedy in our lives. And yet we understand that without that, we needed something to shake us up a little bit. So we see that this awakening can be just that which gives us that incentive to lead a type of spiritual life, to dedicate ourselves to that. And this time of year, when we have an opportunity to look at things differently and to rededicate ourselves, for me, this is the ideal time. That now we can really feel that, yes, I want to rededicate myself to this spiritual path, that I want to go deeper and deeper and really not waste this precious opportunity of this lifetime. I read once about a monastic order of nuns, Christian nuns. I don't know and remember any of the details, but the one thing that I remember is that they had a practice that they would take vows for 1 year. When you take vows, it's a lifetime, but in this case, technically it was for 1 year, and before that 1 year was over, that they would let their hair grow long, they would take out worldly clothes, they'd get them ready so that if they wanted to leave, they would leave and no one would ask any questions, that their time was up. But the purpose of this was that at the end of each year, they would take their vows again, renew their vows. So that each year, it was that feeling that, yes, I dedicated my life, I want to rededicate my life. Just as some people, they'll take wedding vows a second time, just to kind of rededicate. So I thought that this beginning of the year, this would be a nice time for us to think of these things a little bit. So let's take a few minutes and sit quietly.